What's up, y'all? This video right here is part two of the MBE Epicenter tutorial. Uh, I've already broke down and show. I got another video here that I'm going to release to show you how to change the PFM filter. I did that live, but I think I made it unlisted. On this one here, this video here, let's talk about how to use this with your enclosure, because it will expose your enclosure or the fallacies that you have inside your box as far as tuning. So I've told you that this gives you how wide or whatever frequency you set it, this controls it. So if you had, let's say you got set at 40 hertz and you got this at 12 o'clock position, you'll feel the indentation, then it'll drop down 35 and 45. Okay, in my opinion, pretty much, because this controls wherever you center it at. It's like a 10, like a parametric base equalizer. So it's going to go, it's going to roll off it's going to roll up and off from wherever that point is. So if you got it set to 40, at the 40 hertz frequency that it detects in the harmonics that are higher, because some people are thinking that if you got this thing set to amplify at 40 hertz, then what's going to happen is at 40 and 35 and 45, that's when you're going to get a what you would call a boost. No, in actuality, you're looking at the harmonics. So 40 is actually 80, if that makes sense to you. The epicenter detects frequencies at 80 hertz, and it's going to drop it down an octave or a whole octave. First, it's going to look at a half an octave to see if there's a nice boost there it's going to go half an octave and a whole octave. Okay, the first harmonic, I believe, and the second harmonic, it's a way of understanding that it's beyond me, but the original frequency is 80. If you got this thing set here at 12 o'clock position, you're roughly at 40 hertz. So if it takes an 80 hertz beat or a bass note, 80 hertz in the original creation of the song, then what supports it is going to be added. It's going to be not added, but not attenuated, but taking the attenuation off of it. So it's going to be restored to his original recording of his original recording. So 40 hertz don't get a boost. But because of the wide knob, 45, 40, and 35, how you set this is going to raise up like a 10 gradually. Now, nobody ports the enclosure to 40 hertz. I mean 80 hertz. A lot of people do have the enclosure tuned to 40 hertz. A lot of a lot of prefab boxes do that. Whereas let's apply it to my system. My box is tuned to 33 hertz. 32, 33, there's really no difference between 32 and 33. You're not going to be able to hear that after year. You will hear a 3 dB difference, 3 hertz difference. 3 hertz difference. Let me slow down. 3 hertz difference. Meaning that if you tune to 33 hertz and the box tuned to 36 hertz, you will be able to differentiate between the two boxes. You will actually say, hey, that box is playing lower than the other. But how do you use the epicenter in response to that so that you can get a flat response? Well, here comes the trick. Here's the trick right here. It's the same thing you can do when anything, even a DSP. And some people say with a DSP, you don't need this. Yes, this is not doing the same thing that a DSP does. A DSP is a digital signal processor. It's not restoring or attenuating nothing that was already done. Okay? It's like a souped up crossover. And some of them have time alignment so you can figure out when each signal is going to hit each speaker so they hit your ear at the same time. But it's not doing the same thing a DSP does. It's doing something different. But it's not a bass booster either. It's not a bass booster either. But how do you use this with your system? Now, my system is set to 33 hertz. Okay? 33 hertz. So with that being said, that's what my box is tuned at. So as you get closer to tuning, the cone is not going to move very much. Output's going to come from the port, and the cone is going to support the port. That's why I like to use a large port area, large as I possibly can with that particular driver. Do I have my epicenter set, the sweep, the frequency is supposed to set at? Do I have it set at 33? No. No, because I want more of a flat response. So where you got it set if you ain't got it set to 33? Ours has it set to restore frequencies around 40 and 42. Why'd you about 30, way about between 38 and 40? Why? Because I got my wide knob at about 11, 10. I want to go pretty wide. So when it detects frequencies that in a higher, like at 80 hertz, okay, it's going to drop it down to 30, I say 58 hertz or 40 hertz. I say 8 hertz. I say 40. Well, 80 hertz. I'm gonna get confused about God. I'm confused about myself. I gotta see it. I'm looking at the shoes. I can't do it right here, baby. Look at my wife. So if I gotta sit, I say I got. Let me face you this way so I can see your eye, baby. Because I'm confused about myself talking to her. They're like, what the hell? Okay, cool. Now here we go. So my enclosure tune to 33. All right. I have this set not at 33 hertz, because then it would only detect notes at 60 hertz. It's will have a whole octave up would be 66. So at 60, any notes at 66 is going to send it back down. It's going to restore the lost harmonic at 33 and boost it up, and I'll get a boost response there. But I want it to be more flat, so I don't actually tune. Since I'm going to get help from the enclosure, and the subwoofer is not going to move that much at tuning. Why do I need to put it right at tuning if I want to get a flatter response? Since as the frequencies, as you start to lose power, as it's, and well, you're gonna start to gain power, but as it starts to get louder, as you move to tone tuning, because the woofer is not moving that much, so you're not getting an impedance spike. You're gonna get a lot of power coming to the subwoofer at that frequency, and that frequency in the box help it boost it. But I don't want it to be just at those. I want it to be a flatter response. So what I do, since I'm using the wire to strengthen it, instead of it boosting at 33, I got it set like 38, 42. And how I did was I set the sweep knob right here, and I did a frequency sweep from 35 to 55. Right? As I turned this knob here, each time I did those sweep, I should have noticed all those notes had roughly the same output. That's what you use your meter for. All those notes had roughly the same output. Because I don't have it, I'm using the enclosure to further my low bass extension. So even though it's looking at frequencies higher, like 80, and dropping down to 40, the lost harmonic on the roll off on the wide, let's say it's set at 40, so the wide's at 12 o'clock. So at 35 and 45, both get to come up. Well, if I'm closer to my tuning of my enclosure, as you bring this up, the enclosure itself, the tuning of the enclosure is right there with it. So now this roll off right here, where it's set, it's actually getting picked back up. So it's no longer a 10. It starts to come like this. So instead of it just be right at 35, 36, 37, 38, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, then it starts to come back out. How about this? 45, 43, 42, 41, 40, boop, 39, 38. You think it's finna get a dip, but it's not finna get a dip. The reason why it's not finna get a dip, because now as it's going down, it's getting closer to my enclosure tuning, so that's bringing it back up. So and you can see it in evident display inside my vehicle. I'm metering in the 30s with eights. I'm metering in the 40s in the 30s with eights, and that's all because of this little device right here. As it starts to roll off, it's rolling off toward the tuning of my enclosure, which is picking it back up because now the woofer doesn't have to do that much work because the box is doing the work. So now I get a flatter response. Now, let's say I want even flatter than that. I turn the knob all the way over. You get between 8 to 10 hertz. So now I take it to 45. 45 is where I'm sitting at. It's looking at frequencies in the 90s. So that's why sometimes my Epicenter is doing nothing at all. Because if there's no bass notes in the 90s, it's not going to drop down to 45. It's not going to do anything. And that's all depending on how I turn that knob. But let's look at it. 45. So it's going up 8 to 10. So that means it's going to 55. So 55, 54, 53, 52, 51, 50, 49, 48. See, it's starting to ride to the peak. 49, 48, 47, 46, 45. Boop, at the peak. Now it's going to roll off because it's a parametric band. How to adjust is parametrics. It just doesn't do one frequency. It do them all together because it's all harmonics. So at 45, it go 45. Now that's what the peak frequencies at. Yeah, that's why I'm getting my serious boost. And remember, my enclosure is tuned to 33, so I'm getting the boost from the cone and from the port at 45. It's gonna be significantly loud. Now, as we keep going, 45, 44, 43, I'm supposed to be dropping. But because I made this wide knob wide and I'm still above the tuning of my enclosure, I'm not dropping this as much as you think. 45, 44, 43, I'm getting closer to tuning the enclosure, it's picking it back up. 40, so let's say it go 45, 44, 43, 42, 41, 40. Now it's starting to rise. Because now I'm getting closer to the tuning of my enclosure, but makes how I make this wide knob, how wide I want it to be. So now I'm getting a boost from 33. Now I'm not going, at 33 hertz, I'm not going to fall off immediately because I got 8, but I'm going to fall off. Around about 28 hertz, I'm gonna fall off. It's gonna start falling off below 33, but you're really gonna start hearing it fall off at about 28, 29. But from 30 all the way to 55, I'm relatively flat. Relatively, it's starting to climb as it get toward 45. But from 45 to 30, I'm flat. For them 15 hertz, man, which is where I like, and I particularly like below 40. My entire 30 to 40 hertz bandwidth is boosted cleanly. Because we're raising all the frequencies at one time. I'm using my enclosure and the epicenter to make the guys, when they hear the videos, when they hear the 25 waves, when they actually get to hear him in person, they're like, man, that's why they saying what they say. Hey, man, this thing is just killing the lows. Because from 30 hertz all the way to 45, I'm using the enclosure and I'm using this at the same time. I'm getting above what you would hear in your system without it. And that's why those of us that know how to use this thing swear by it. Swear by it. And I got to look. Digital Designs has one. Who else has one? I know Digital Designs has one. It's their version, but it's using the same technology. You're going below. You're looking at frequencies in the high range, and as you turn that dial, it's going to show you more of the effect of dropping down a half octave or a whole octave. So it takes songs like they say that has no bass and restores the lost harmonic, which winds up giving you bass without boosting the signal. You're not boosting the signal. You're just saying, hey, 60, but you got this at 30. Bring up 30. And if your enclosure's tuned, it's crazy. It's crazy. Then how you move the jumpers on the inside, you can, like right now, my jumpers is 7.5. I got a lot of clean output with a lot of force coming out the mate. So much for we get what, 140, 140 at 30 hertz with eights. You can do that with the epicenter. And there's the thing, a properly constructed and low tune enclosure. Now you don't want to go too low if you just want to listen to general music. Some people like to tune their boxes 28, 29, and then you still need to take that in calculation of this. And that's why Audiocontrol recommends that you get this thing installed by a licensed installer. Now I'm not a licensed installer anymore. I used to be MECP certified back in the 90s. Now I just build boxes and ship and do no installation. But that's why they recommend you get this installed by somebody that know what they're doing. Because if you're in the wrong hands, you would, oh man, it takes away bass. Yeah, because you got these dials set wrong. Or you got your enclosure tuned too high. And this thing here is doing what it's supposed to do. And you unloading. Because you got it set right. And especially you got to include the tone to 40 hertz. You got to include the tone to 40 hertz. You got this thing set to 40. You know that roll off still happening. So it's finding figures. Let's say it's finding figures at 60, and you turn that dial at 60, but your inclusion turn to 40. You're not even a high octave lower, a whole octave lower. So you telling this thing to drop from 60 hertz signal that it's hearing and place some 30 hertz beat, and you tune it 40 hertz, you're gonna have no bass. you they chuffing, they moving like crazy, but you ain't getting no output because there ain't no pressure back there. They ain't got nothing to hit and jump back at you. I'm gonna keep digging in this so y'all can understand this epicenter because it's a very controversial piece of equipment. Most of the time, 95% of the time, is misused, and that's why people don't like it. But those of us who know what to do with it, aka what Steve, Steve me love him. I love him. I don't know. I don't know if he love him, but I know Steve me. Hey, all those old heads that love them lows. Please get everything in the box 404-694-4818. And as always, listen responsibly. Keep it positive. Duck them haters. Pay attention to your supporters, not the people that talk about you. You got 1,500, 100 comments, 10 of them negative. Pay attention to the other 1,490, not the 10. Peace.